We like to think about it as not just the what that we are doing, but the how. And if you think about what culture is, it's our ability to create the environment and the conditions by which we can accomplish great things as an organization, but also making sure that each individual is really thinking about how they contribute to culture, detract from culture, how they can build culture.
Welcome to Science of Leadership, the podcast dedicated to helping you become a better leader. Here, you'll gain valuable knowledge, hear inspiring stories, and learn the scientific principles that promote exceptional leadership. I'm Tom Collins, your host, and I'm thrilled to have you join us on this journey to becoming a better leader. Today, I'm excited to dive into the topic of organizational culture with Hewlett Packard's President of Personal Systems, my friend Alex Cho. Alex leads one of HP's largest business segments, steering a $35 billion business and overseeing innovation and operational excellence for millions of users globally. With his deep expertise and career-spanning immersion in a storied organizational culture, Alex is the perfect guest to explore how leaders influence and foster an organizational culture that drives success. Stick around as we discuss actionable ways to build a strong culture and why it's vital for innovation, collaboration, and employee engagement. Alex, welcome to Science of Leadership, and thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, Tom. It's great to be with you.
To kick off our conversation, I've been thinking about this idea of culture and how important it is to successful organizations. Most of our listeners will have heard of the famed HP way. When you think about culture or when you are discussing it with those you lead, how do you define it? What does it mean to you?
Yeah, what a big topic. Let's just jump right into it. Well, culture we think is, a core part of this thing that we do in business, in leadership roles. We like to think about it as not just the what that we are doing, but the how, and also getting to the why. And if you think about what culture is, it's our ability to create the environment and the conditions by which we can accomplish great things as an organization. So while we as leaders define what we need to get done for the business, focusing on how we do it. And you mentioned the HP way, you're right. One of the great contributions of the founders of HP has been the HP way, and it's very much about the how, with integrity and trust and respect, making sure that we are contributing and we're making an impact. A lot of that, again, is the how behind what we do. And we think as a part of what we as leaders must do in our day jobs, we think that culture in defining and demonstrating the how is a core part of that.
Yeah, thanks for delineating that for us. Certainly in my interviews with four-star generals, when I was talking to them, this was a really important point that they made. It's not just what you accomplish, it's how you accomplish it. It's not only doing the right thing, it's doing the right thing for the right reasons in the right way. And that really culminated in this idea of culture and leadership, certainly. Since he lived in Palo Alto in the last years of his life, you may be familiar with the work of renowned social psychologist Edgar Schein. I don't know if you know him, but he really did a lot of early work on organizational culture, and he studied it and wrote about it extensively. And he wrote what's probably the most influential book on it, Organizational Culture and Leadership, a really popular book. And I think the last edition was the fourth edition in 2010. But anyway, have you ever read that or any of his work?
I haven't read the book. I'm familiar directionally with some of the key concepts, but I actually was reflecting on the fact that when I went to school, I was surprised by a class that I ended up having to take. I was in the engineering department, and I remember one of the classes that was mandatory was organizational behavior. And I was blown away because we were, at the time we were doing engineering and mechanicals and all that. And the whole topic around organizational behavior, I thought was going to be the easy class.
Yeah.
Turned out to be the most complex in many ways, the most interesting class, and the one that really personally challenged me a lot to think about. Our jobs are not just to invent and create, which is a lot of what you do in engineering, but it's around creating the environment by which others can do it as well. And so I think and that fits very well with this topic of culture. So that was early days, and obviously that has continued to evolve in terms of learnings as an industry.
Yeah, well, it probably says a lot about Stanford and the outlook, the culture there, and especially in the engineering department, and the close knit sort of community. Edgar Schein was there, and I'm sure had some influence on different folks there. So kudos for for them thinking about that and so forth. I would say that this work by Schein certainly isn't more academic treatise, if you will. So listeners probably haven't listened to that very much, and so you're in great company, I'm sure. Um, anyway, some of the things that were in there, I was thinking might be valuable is this idea of how leadership is tied to culture. And so early on in that book, he wrote, this is a quote, "One of the most decisive functions of leadership is the creation, the management, and sometimes even the destruction of culture." And so that I think that resonates with what you're saying, that it is the responsibility of leaders to create that.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about, and we spent a lot of time here at HP talking about the fact that a leader, again, helps to define the what, but creates and demonstrates the how, or needs to articulate it and create the conditions by which other people can deliver on the what. And so culture is a core part of what we think a leader needs to be
Yeah.
or deliver.
Well, I'm curious, Alex, do you have a story from your career where you've had to build and support a strong organizational culture?
I wish it were just one story. It's the day job, Tom. The day job is like culture is our day job. I was thinking about this though. I'll tell you where I got it wrong.
Okay.
My first international assignment early in my career was in France. And so I'll tell you, I moved in the month of August. For those of you who know what it's like to live and work in France or in Europe, you know how busy August is. Not. Secondly, I came as the American. It was my first management role. I didn't know any of the language, and I showed up and I thought my job was all about the what. Here's what I want to get done, and I still remember the first staff meeting where I articulated, here's what we're going to do. I spent the time in August. It was a little bit slower getting all my notes. Here's what we're going to do. And our first staff meeting, when people came back, I said, okay, hi, I'm Alex. Here's what we're going to do. And I asked for any feedback. Nothing. And so we had a short staff meeting. And one of the people in there said, hey, you need to go to the coffee. We had a coffee machine. This is in the late 90s. And so I walked to the coffee machine, and the person had said, just go ask them what they think. And what was amazing is that after 3 coffees that I had, I heard so much. I heard that, hey, Alex, you didn't get to know us at all. You were kind of talking about what you wanted to do. And, over a period of time, I learned that, my job is not just to come in with all the what and all the bright ideas I might have. It's to allow people to have a voice. It's to allow people to be able to feel heard. It's to create the environment where they feel like they were connected to as a person. And again, maybe my first introduction in the wrong way of recognizing that our job in any organization or in the workplace is not just to go get stuff done that's on your mind, but is to collaborate, share, empathize, connect, be authentic, let people be heard and known. And within that, then align everyone to a common mission. So learn the hard way, but I'll tell you, one of the best lessons I had, and that is you don't just come in with your ideas, you come in with learning to connect with others first.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Alex, for sharing that. That's really good. And I appreciate the fact that you jumped out there with a, hey, I messed this up, because so often with my guests, there are these really experienced, exceptionally accomplished folks who a lot of times have a this is how I did a great thing, or story, not because they're trying to brag, but that's just the nature of their success or whatever. And so I get to be the one who says, well, here's an example of how I screwed this up. So I
I have
appreciate
many of
you.
those, Tom. I have many. In fact, part of what I've learned is you kind of need to just say, I get five. I don't know, a year or a week, and you just don't spend time worrying about the fact that you messed up. You say it's one of the five, and you learn from it. But it's a key part of what I've realized that I have to be open to.
Yeah. Well, before we kind of get to why it's valuable, culture and creation and developing that, I was thinking I would kind of round out our definition of culture by sharing Edgar Schein's model for organizational culture. And in it, he described really three levels of organizational culture, which he referred to as artifacts and behaviors, espouse values, and then assumptions. And so just to kind of spell those out, artifacts include the visible elements that some outsider might come in and see. So see, hear, feel. That can include the physical environment. So whether it's the building itself, how things are set up, cubicles and so on, the language that's used, the dress code, emotional displays, rituals, all those sorts of almost anthropologic things. The second component was the spouse values, and those are how folks in the organization represent the organization to themselves and others. And those typically inform the organizational artifacts, so what things really look like. And then that final level of organizational behavior is shared basic assumptions. And those are ingrained and taken for granted to the point that they're invisible to the people on the inside. A larger cultural example of this would be how people immersed in an individualistic mindset like ours in the United States cannot conceive of subjugating our own personal aspirations to the needs of the group as would be expected in a collectivistic culture such as those in Asia. And so anyway, those three components are what Schein said are what make up culture. So as we as leaders play an integral role in shaping those, I think we need to keep that in mind. Anyway, I wanted to kind of add that for just
Thanks.
definitional purpose.
It's better than ChatGPT. I got it from Tom Collins. Great summary and synthesis. And but you're right. Actually, when you asked me about what is culture, and I made the big point about the what and the how,
Yeah.
but a lot of it's the why. Like underlying this stems from an assumption of what you believe and the why. And I think understanding the value of every person, understanding the value of the collective, understanding that we're here to make an impact. Just some examples of the why that I think then ladder up to the how, from which you have a basis to go deliver the what. So
I like that mental construct that you just kind of explained here.
my pyramid.
Yeah, the why, the how.
The how.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of things go down to the why. That's what they say in great marketing. Yeah. Yeah. You're there to go sell the widget, but what's most importantly is the why. Why is that widget going to be important to you? And but less from a marketing side, more from a culture side is, my experience is when you tap into the why, you get to the core of who we are as people and that which motivates us beyond a short term, but a longer term.
Yeah. Well, shifting gears toward the value of why it's important culture and that many of our listeners, I think, will have certainly heard of Lou Gerstner, who was the chairman of IBM.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so he once said, culture isn't just one aspect of the game, it is the game. And so while we've defined it, why do you think it's such an essential part of leadership?
I don't know if I can add more to Lou Gerstner, but going back to our earlier discussion, as a leader, I really believe, and I've increasingly been learning that my role is, yes, to help set strategy, but is really to create the unique conditions by which a broad group of people can do great things.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the language that kind of works for me because I think I have to create the conditions which is a combination of the artifacts and what I demonstrate. It's also a conditions not for one, but for many people. Because as you lead large organizations, like I personally cannot define the what for every part of our business. I mean, we span a global business operating consumer segments, enterprise segments, government segments. There's no way that I personally can do the what for all of that. So to create the environment by which we can enable people to do great things, I think is a part of leadership. And by the way, I think some of the latest challenges are not just to enable people to do great things, but particularly in a world that is increasingly hybrid. You know, we all went through COVID together. There's really a new challenge out there for all of the leaders out there, and that is really engaging the hearts and the minds of our employees, because it's increasingly easy to feel lost. In fact, we just finished our second year of a broad body of research that we at HP have done. We call it the Work Relationship Index. This is our second year. It's about 15,000 employees around the world, where we've spent time to understand how do they feel about work, and would they consider their work environment a place where they feel as though they are able to thrive and contribute. The good news, well, actually, the bad news is, on average, work relationship, that the health that people feel was relatively low. 28% of employees felt as though they had a healthy relationship with work. The good news, though, so to speak, is guess what one of the top drivers are? It's about leadership, connecting with the leadership, feeling the sense of community and connection. And again, that's why when I hear you reinforce the learnings and the wisdom of Gerstner and et cetera about how leadership is our day job and culture is our day job, makes all the sense in the world. All the latest data shows that.
Yeah, you guys have hit on, and you have a really large body of data to corroborate some work of my colleague Tate Shanafelt, who is at Stanford, and he really has done a lot. He's really the world authority in physician burnout and professional burnout and engagement and so forth. And he's shown in his work that it's the leadership capability of your immediate supervisor that has the greatest impact on whether or not you have professional burnout or engagement, fulfillment, those sorts of things. So your data corroborate that perfectly. I was thinking about this in my own career, and I've had the opportunity to build teams with our own culture, and that's really, for me, that has been really fun and fulfilling. And so I've seen the power of building culture, particularly when that team has been nested within a larger dysfunctional culture. And so in one program that I built previously, our vision was, and this was literally our vision statement, was to decrease the burden of disease on patients and families. And so we did that within a culture that was really built on encouraging and appreciating each other, supporting each other, fostering the development of our colleagues. And so consequently, as the culture of that larger organization began to rot from the head, as they say, our culture only grew stronger and our program more successful. And so to me, that was really a profound example of the importance of culture, because simultaneously I saw the good that we had in our team and our program, and the bad of the larger organization. If we talk about, you added some research from HP, and I really appreciate that, because here, on Science of Leadership, we really like to have data to support the things that we're talking about. Research has consistently shown that this strong organizational culture leads to higher employee engagement, innovation, and overall performance. And so some data from this year, actually, the Gallup organization, and everybody knows they do a huge amount of work in organizational evaluations and things. This year they have shown that organizations with a strong culture and high employee engagement have, listen to these numbers, 23% higher profitability, 18% higher productivity, 32% higher quality, 70% higher employee well-being, 78% lower absenteeism, and 51% lower turnover. I mean, those are incredible numbers. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, that's why. Well, first, I love the fact that you're combining art and science in this, and but you're right. I think the underlying driver for us to focus on things like employee engagement, and we have regular ways that we survey employees in our company, and all companies are increasingly doing that, is because the data shows that a more engaged employee set are more energized to deliver better solutions, higher quality solutions, and it's a 1 + 1 = 3, definitely. And so for us, that means as a topic again, it's not like you do your day job and on the side you should go think about culture and leadership and employee engagement. The day job is this. A lot of times, what we've spoken to our leaders about is recognizing that you need competency in your roles, but you also need to be able to have the character that's building culture. Yeah. Maybe that's why I talk about my Stanford days. Maybe that's why I was so kind of disoriented by my first organizational behavior class, because it's the one that I didn't have the tools nor the vocabulary to even address. I mean, if you were going to give me a problem set, in general, I was a little bit more versed. But now we're talking about organizational structures and decision rights and this thing called RACI. I remember I heard RACI in college and I thought, what is that? And negotiation. And it was not the vocabulary or the construct that made sense to me at the time. But as we know, that great work gets done as you address these things on top of the great idea and the great engineered outcome.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you're hitting on this idea that leadership is so much more about relationship and how we're communicating with people and interacting with them and making them feel valued and important and part of the conversation, the organization. It's not just, did you hit the numbers? Did you make the widget? Did you do whatever? It's so much bigger than that.
Yeah. And, you say that all great business comes from great relationships. And I think there's obviously a connection to what we're saying is that you need the relationship, you need that connection. But I also think that also applies to your individual ability to contribute. And I think when you feel connected, when you feel like you're part of something bigger, when you feel like you are known, when you feel like you are challenged in a way that is safe for you, then I think that adds to your individual ability and confidence to try things and take risks. And we need that. We can't be operating within our safe walls and innovate and grow. We need to be able to be in an environment by which we feel the support and the reinforcement to go do things beyond what we did before.
Yeah. What you've just said is 100% consistent with the studies that have been done. And I mean, you're in the upper echelon of one of the most storied, tech companies in Silicon Valley, and innovation and pushing the envelope and doing new and exciting things is part of the fabric of that organization. And certainly, if we look at studies, psychological safety, which you hit on, when people feel safe, psychologically safe, that they can put themselves out there and they know that they won't be crushed by somebody above them when maybe they mess up or they offer an idea that is outside the box. When they can do that, creativity increases, innovation increases, productivity increases, all the things that any organization that's trying to produce widgets or whatever they're trying to do, all of them survive on those things. In a really highly competitive environment, you have to have those things to stay up with the competition and to move ahead. And so 100% right, what you're saying with regard to consistency with research that's been published. Well, Alex, we've talked about what culture is, and we've just really hit on why it's important for our listeners. Can you offer some kind of practical advice on how to build and sustain a positive organizational culture?
And I had the advantage of being a part of a company that really believes this, and so in many ways codified this. One of the key things that we do as a company is as a part of a whole talent management process, meaning how we build talent, assess talent, reward talent. We have an official set of assessments that's reflecting both the what, meaning what are the accomplishments, but the how. And the how includes the ability to collaborate, the ability to develop followership, et cetera. So number one is practically, we translate this into what we define as measurements for what a great leader is. And there's no, I think you mentioned rituals. There's no better way than codifying something to help make sure that it goes beyond rhetoric to something that you do. Second thing, practically, is to create time and space for this topic. I tell you, it's the hardest thing to do. In our day, if I were to show you my Outlook calendar, I got meetings. It's not the first instinct to create time to make sure that people are connecting, or to create time for us when we get together as a leadership team to talk about our culture and where we're at. But practically, building it into the agenda is another way that we want to do it. Like, we're not going to solve something unless we create time into that. And then the third thing that for us and for me has been important around this is what we would call operationalizing the sentiment, is not only creating measurements for leaders, but creating the time, but also making sure that each individual is really thinking about how they contribute to culture, detract from culture, how they can build culture. And one of the things that I personally have been increasing convinced of is just the power of what we say, our words. As you know, like, words have so much agency and power, and it's the collection of everything you say publicly and in smaller forms that I think that adds culture and does this. And I think holding people accountable to not only what they do, but what they say. By the way, there's another part that we find is important, and this seems a little bit antithetical to my day job, and that is there's no substitute to spending some time in person. And I say my day job because my whole day job is about empowering the world in a hybrid working and learning and world to use technology to connect. But what we have found is, in fact, what the data, since you're the data guy, data says that you only convey so much via voice and even video. You're going to get so much more because of body language when you're with the person, and you can see things outside of the immediate point of conversation. And we're in the world again of relationships, rapport, trust, being known, and there's no substitute for having, on top of your hybrid virtual video conference experience, which we've got a lot of solutions to do, to investing the time, the money to be together. So those are some of the practical ways that we operationalize this concept of what we say, the how is just as important as the what.
Yeah, I really like those. Make it a value, make time for it, operationalize it, hold people accountable to it, empower them to do it. I think those are all really excellent. It's great to hear you say, that physical proximity, actually being together is highly valuable and important, because I agree. I think that even though this is allowing us to have this conversation, whatever it is, 1,800 miles apart or whatever right now, and we can connect with people on the other side of the earth in this way, there is, as humans, there's something about being together proximately that really is highly important and almost indescribable, I think.
And I think one of the reasons why, and we could probably find a way to add to this thing that we do digitally, but I think one of the reasons why is that you get to know more of the person when you're around them. And the more is, well, you get to see more of the body, but you get to hear more than the specific topic that you're there to go solve or engage in. You hear all the side chatter.
Yeah.
And, I'm just a big believer through just my personal experiences. Like, there's a lot more to everybody than you know. And there's so
Right.
much richness in getting to know. I call it the 10% principle. Use the occasion to get to know 10% more of who they really are and
Mm.
share 10% more of who you are. And that's not just interesting facts that you get or you receive or give to another person, but it actually helps you connect better. And it's just that when you're together in person, you're able to convey more of that. But obviously, there's ways to create more time and space, even in a video conference for that. But the more you feel known and the more you share, and that's maybe the reason why authenticity is maybe the word of the decade around leadership, and that is being real, showing more of who you are as a person. I am a business person. I run a computing business, but I'm a father. I have 4 kids. I have a dog that drives me crazy. I have a garage that I can never keep clean enough for me. And it's like, and as soon as I clean it up, I got to do it again. I have kids who are in relationships that are not something I can control or influence. I just listen to. Hey, that's more of who I am than
Yeah.
whatever role I have here at HP, which I also personally enjoy.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, thanks for, sharing some of that human side for our listeners. Certainly, I think most of those things I know as a friend, but it's good to really be authentic to people that are out there, because probably anybody tuning into this and they say Alex Cho, HP, oh, that, this name or whatever, and they come to it with some expectation, some frame that their box they put you in, right? And whether that's fair or not, offering, hey, here's more, um, and also I think when we do that as leaders, we let down our guard. We're more authentic, as you said. We allow other people to do the same thing, and to know that you can be human and still be able to do this to some degree well.
Yeah. Tom, if you were to get me in a coaching relationship and say, hey, Alex, what have you learned most and had to work on in terms of personal development? This is probably one of them. When it sounds like it's going to be a generational statement. When I started work, not that long ago, but I'm not a, Gen Z, obviously. Um, we kept our work lives and our personal lives different.
Yeah.
It was just different. I would never have thought of talking about my personal life at work, and quite frankly, I never thought about talking about my professional life personally. I distinctly remember a time when there was someone at work who heard that I had children, and I remember what she said to me. I had no idea, and I thought, what? And you know what was so interesting? It was literally within the same month that someone in my personal life who said, what do you do? I have no idea what you do, and because you always talk about this stuff. And I remember being struck by the fact that, at least for me at the time, that I was a bit too rigid about having a professional persona
Mm-hmm.
and having a personal persona. And it was not ultimately, actually, I lost something by not allowing people at work to know that I have life outside of work. And I lost something with my personal life by not allowing them to know that I have a career that is a part of who I am. And it has been one of the bigger parts of me, both personally, to let people know I do have a job and just kind of, et cetera. And for people
Mm-hmm.
at work to know that I have life outside of work. And it's actually been an area of risk that I've had to address, I guess, if I call it risk. But I'll tell you what, like, my family loves the fact that they have some view of what my day life is like. Not all the details, but they know who I am more because of it. And I think people at work appreciate more that they know that I'm more than a machine. Someone has said
Yeah.
once, you're a machine, you're an action item man, and that I'm a person. So it's
Yeah.
been my probably big area of needing to develop as a person and as a employee leader.
Yeah. I can say that I've experienced the same thing. I mean, I always, I'm a pediatric cardiologist, right? So I take care of kids who have really abnormal hearts and arteries and things. And so when I'm at work, I'm business, like I'm serious, right? Because what I do is, to me, so incredibly serious. And so I think people, when I make it, I'm always making jokes. They may not know it. My humor tends to be pretty dry.
Sounds like a dad joke kind of
Yeah.
guy.
Yeah. I'm a dry humor kind of guy most of the time. And so people, I'll say something, they don't understand it's a joke because they see me as this just hyper serious person in the work environment. And so that's something too, just like you, that I've had to work on to be like, okay, let's show our human side to those we're working with. Obviously, I do that with families and things, and I empathize and care for them in those moments. But it's different with the folks that I work with, and so learning how to do that well and still learning that. But yeah, I think you and I probably share some similarity in that regard.
I'll tell you one thing that is really unlocked for us if I combine this to the day job. My day job is to, develop PCs and peripherals and displays and all these things. And what struck me is we use slides like every company, probably too many slides.
Yeah.
And the cover slide, our old cover slides, just before you get into the content, it was just like, I don't know, dull and dry. And like, so now I have this thing where I want my cover slide, and we have the standard cover slide, and it's got boxes of people, and younger people, older people, at work, at home, outside. And then I take the occasion to tell our customers and partners, but also internal teams, we create products, millions of products, millions, worth billions of dollars. But you know what? Our goal is not the P of products. Our goal is people. And so we see that our mission is to help people connect to work in the office and now at home. We address people who are younger and learning in education, older in the workforce. And for us, that has been more than rhetoric. It has actually been a wonderful way of recognizing that we innovate for people. And innovating for people is what drives a mission that lasts beyond the current financial quarter or year. It's something that lasts. And it is the bigger thing. Again, I'm a big believer that people do well when they recognize they're part of something bigger. And maybe it is similarly not just talking about the what of the product, but the why. And as I think about culture and people, it's all about recognizing that at the end of the day, we are people interacting with other people, whether we're teaching them, working with them, innovating with them, serving them, asking things of them. So anyway, next time you see a presentation by Alex Cho, you'll see my cover slide. A lot of color, a lot of people, some products in there.
Yeah. Well, I think that, just as you say, you're getting with the why, the what, and the how. And so putting that foundation in there first, I think, is exceptionally intelligent, thoughtful, inspiring probably to those that you're leading.
You know what, Tom? The other thing is, it is the universal, meaning, we have a global company. I mentioned my experience living in France. I've also lived and worked in Asia. There are cultural differences, yes, and that manifests in languages. I heard you talk about a sense of self versus group. I mean, think about Japan versus the U.S.
Yeah.
But you know what? That thing which is universal, and when it comes to building culture, is that the focus on the person. The focus on that which is addressing culture, even if the culture of every company or country is different. I find that to be the universal. And so we talk about building culture. It's Yes, look a little bit different by country, but you actually find that leading a global organization, there's more consistency than not. And that's one way to bring together not just a group of people, but a global group of people. And it's been very rewarding and a fascinating part of what I get to do every day. I mean, I love what I do for the product, but I love it for the people and the learnings.
Well, Alex, hard to beat that as a way to end out our conversation today. I really appreciate you being on, the science of leadership with me today, having a really good conversation. Appreciate your friendship and your family, and it's just been great having you on.
Well, great. I'm happy to be here. Great to see you doing this and growing this narrative, which I think the world needs. It's all about leadership.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of The Science of Leadership. We hope today's discussion has inspired you and given you valuable insights to help you become a better leader. Remember, leadership is about helping those we lead do great things. It's a journey of continual growth and learning. When we embrace that journey with curiosity, courage, and humility, we can confront challenges, overcome barriers, and foster environments where everyone can succeed. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to follow or subscribe, leave a comment, and share it with others who are passionate about leadership. Until next week, keep leading with character, competence, caring, and communication. This is Tom Collins. Let's keep growing.